Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for coming out for tonight's event to introduce Dr. Lentz. Right now, we'll have the New Hope-Solebury School Choir, led by Mr. Bateman, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, National Anthem. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. That was excellent. I'd like to take a moment to explain to everyone how we got here today. The board began the search process for a new superintendent in early May, shortly after former Superintendent Dr. Steve Yanni announced his resignation, which was effective June 30th, 2018. The board named Charles Malone as the acting superintendent, and which it's a position he'll maintain until Dr. Lentz takes his position. And we selected the Bucks County Intermediate Unit and Educational Service Agency in Doylestown, VA, to serve as its consultant, our consultant, to help facilitate interviews and guide the search process. Starting on June 15th, the board collected input from staff and community members by conducting a formal survey to gather feedback. The purpose of the survey was to gather input from the community and staff in order to help the board better understand what the community was looking for in the next superintendent. The board received over 200 responses to the survey, which was posted online from June 15th through June 24th, 2018. Using this community feedback, as well as feedback from the district's leadership team, the board then established a comprehensive job posting and developed interview questions unique and distinct to the New Hope-Solebury School community. 34 candidates applied to the posting, which closed on July 20th, 2018. The board reviewed each application in detail and selected 13 candidates to interview in early August. From these initial 13 candidates, the board selected 7 to move forward for more in-depth second-round interviews, which were completed on August 22nd. The board then narrowed the field further, and 3 candidates moved forward to a more extensive and comprehensive third-round interview with the entire board. With each phase of the interview process, the tasks and related questions became more rigorous and comprehensive. In addition to answering questions, candidates were asked to respond to prompts, analyze data, compose writing samples, and make formal presentations. Following the third-round interviews, the board selected Dr. Charles Lentz as the finalist for the position. Upon the announcement of Dr. Lentz's selection, the board advertised this community forum to provide all district stakeholders with an opportunity to meet him and ask questions. An online survey to collect questions for Dr. Lentz was made available from September 28th through October 4th. During that time, 4 community members submitted a total of 7 questions for consideration. Dr. Hoffman, the executive director of the Bucks IU, will use those submitted questions to converse with Dr. Lentz in short order as part of this evening's program. The board has successfully negotiated a proposed contract with Dr. Lentz, currently on public display, that it will consider for approval at special meeting to be held on this Thursday, October 11th. Now, with that being said, I'd like to offer some thank yous to different people who are involved in the process. Begin with the staff, the administrative staff, and Dr. Malone were fantastic. Filling in for Dr. Yanni while we went through this process and moving forward. So, thank you for doing that, and we appreciate that. Beyond that, the Bucks IU team members comprised of Ms. Karen Sandone, Ms. Rebecca Roberts Malamis, and Mr. Brent Zellner, and led by Dr. Mark Hoffman, were instrumental in guiding us through this process. And then finally, I'd like to thank our board members, Dana Swartz, Maria Povach, Andrew Wardover, Stan Marcus, who were the part of the board that supported the second and third round. But prior to that, we had formed a smaller committee for efficiencies, and that committee, which did really a lot of heavy lifting, many countless hours. So a special thanks to those folks. That's Mark Cal, Doug McDonough, and Liz Sheehan, and led by Deirdre Audifer, who just did a fantastic job. And it's a real pleasure working with Deirdre, and just a fantastic job. So thank everyone who's been involved in this process. And with that, I'll turn that over to Mr. Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman.
Well, hello. I'm Mark Hoffman, the Executive Director of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and it's my pleasure to be with you all here this evening. It's an exciting day. Congratulations to Dr. Lentz. Thank you to Mr. Capriotti, Ms. Aldifer, and the other 7 members of the New Hope-Solebury Board. It was a pleasure to work with all of you throughout this process. And on behalf of the Intermediate Unit, thank you for the opportunity to serve the school district and the community in this really important process of selecting a superintendent. In fact, selecting a superintendent is one of the most important and one of the most fundamental roles a school board can play for its community. Selecting, supervising, evaluating, and supporting the superintendent is central to the success of the school district. And it was our pleasure at the Intermediate Unit to support the school district during this important transitional time period. The Bucks County Intermediate Unit is one of 29 educational service agencies that supports the schools and school districts of Bucks County, and of course the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Bucks County Intermediate Unit is fortunate to support the 13 school districts of Bucks County and the countless non-public schools. And it's our pleasure to help support the school districts in a wide variety of areas, including identifying and selecting superintendents. As it relates to tonight's community forum, it's going to be broken up into several very distinct parts. After my brief remarks, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lentz for some introductory comments. Then Dr. Lentz and I will sit at the stage and we'll go over a couple of questions that were submitted by community members to learn more about him and his vision for the New Hope-Solebury School District. We'll conclude with additional remarks by Dr. Lentz and then a concluding commentary and remarks by Mr. Capriotti. Without further ado, it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce to you for the first time your new superintendent, Dr. Charles Lentz.
I'm going to speak from here, and I hope everyone can hear me. It sounds like it's working. So I first would like to say how excited I am to be joining the New Hope-Solebury School District. It's quite a humbling experience to go through the superintendent search, to go through the various processes that Dr. Hoffman spoke of. And it was a very exciting process because it gave me an opportunity to get to know more about the school district and to get to know more about all of you. So that was quite an experience and very enjoyable, actually, little humbling, but enjoyable. It's also very humbling when you come out of that process after going through the interviews and being compared with your peers, who each of which brought significant opportunity to the table for New Hope-Solebury, to come out on top and being the individual that was selected by the school district. And I am very, very thankful and very excited to work with all of you. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the school board for the time and effort that they took in this process, because I think part of this process entails finding the right fit. Who's the person that will fit the job best for New Hope-Solebury, respond to your needs, and work collaboratively with the school community. And I would also like to thank especially the students who performed this evening. They did a phenomenal job, and they're exemplary in terms of what the school district stands for. I know that there's a deep investment in this community for the arts and for the student endeavors and activities beyond just the classroom, and they certainly exemplified that and did a phenomenal job. So I want to thank them as well. As I said, it was very exciting to get to know the community. Last week, I had the opportunity to visit New Hope-Solebury and visit all of the schools. I got to meet some of the students, and I got to meet the faculty and the staff, and that was an incredible experience. They certainly exemplify all that I believed was true about New Hope-Solebury. They're an exemplary staff, very dedicated to the students here in the community. And what I thought was most telling, to a person, every one of them that I spoke with, spoke to their emphasis and their commitment to students. And that's really what education is about. And when I was looking at opportunities for myself moving forward, I was looking for a school district that resonated with regards to my belief in what education is about and what we should stand for. And this team did an amazing job exemplifying the commitment to students, the commitment to a quality education, and providing opportunities for all of the students here in New Hope-Solebury, and I commend them for that. So that was a phenomenal experience. I also was looking, when I looked at this district and considered the opportunity to New Hope-Solebury, there were several things that were very important to me that New Hope-Solebury illustrates. Dedicated faculty and staff, that goes without saying. An excellent leadership team, and I think that the team, as I said, it certainly does that. An active and engaged school board. The school board is stellar, outstanding. They were committed to the process from the very beginning, and I enjoyed my dialogue with them throughout the process. And through the interview process, I got to know what they were looking for in a superintendent, and that was a very, very interesting experience, and certainly resonated again with me with regard to what's important in a superintendent. Invested parents and community. Better? Okay. Invested parents and community. New Hope-Solebury obviously has an incredibly dedicated community of both parents and community members who are invested in ensuring that New Hope-Solebury School District is successful, and I look forward to partnering with all of you in that process. And finally, a tradition of excellence and achievement. This district, hands down, has really exemplified what quality education looks like, what we're looking for in terms of an educational experience for children, but more importantly, beyond the academics, what it looks like to provide a meaningful, well-rounded education for children. There's a deep commitment to the arts, there's a deep commitment to extracurricular activities, and I think that's incredibly important in preparing children to face the world today, a world that's incredibly changing. A world that is probably the most challenging world that educators have ever had to work in, because we're preparing children for a world that we don't exactly know what it looks like. Traditionally in education, we have been preparing children for a world that we pretty much knew looked a lot like the world that we're in today. However, in the future, if you look at all the data and evidence about preparing children for the future, we don't necessarily know what the world's going to look like. The jobs that they're going to be experiencing are not the jobs of today. There's going to be tremendous change in our world, and it's an increasingly global world. So we need to be preparing children for the world of the future, where they're going to be interconnected with other students and other workers and other countries and other people that may or may not be a lot like themselves. So the work of New Hope-Solebury is certainly preparing them for that world, and I appreciate the work that they're doing. When I was applying for the job, the other thing that was really interesting to me is what the community was looking for in a superintendent. And as I read through that job description, there were a lot of things that truly resonated with who I am as an educator and what I believe. When I went into education, I went in because in my own experience in education, I was raised in the 1970s and 80s, single-parent family, very non-traditional for that period of time. And what made me successful was the educators that worked with me and really took me under their wing and cultivated me as both a person and as a student to allow me to have the success that I've had to this point. And part of what I was really focused on as I went into education was paying it forward and making a difference in the lives of the children with whom I worked. And that was crucial to me in every aspect of the educational career that I've had, both as a teacher, as an administrator, and now as a central office administrator. I'm very committed to making sure that we're doing what's right in the interest of children and preparing them for a solid future. There were other things in the job description that I thought were really important. New Hope is committed, and the parents are committed to providing a child-centered education and making sure that children are successful and have opportunities that they need to build the solid foundation for them to progress. I think that's essential, and I completely agree with that. Setting high expectations for all students was part of that description, and I completely agree with that. Being informed about best educational practices and innovative, which I think New Hope-Solebury is already doing and can continue to do. And providing a cohesive, strong community in which children can thrive. I think that certainly is something that resounds with me. And providing for the whole child, intellectually, social, emotionally, and in regards to their whole development, I think is extremely important. So those were things that really resonated in the job description and hit home for me as a superintendent in New Hope-Solebury. So I think all of those things were what drew me to apply for this position and what make this position a good fit, I think, for me. In addition to that, throughout my career, I've really tried very hard to leave a legacy for the work that I do with children and inspire my faculty and staff that I've worked with in the past for leaving a legacy for children. One of the authors that really hit home for me was an author by the name of Randy Pouch. And if you haven't read his work, he speaks to leaving a legacy through his work in education for children that he worked with, but he was at the college level in higher education. And that book and his philosophy resonated with me because I truly feel that our work in education should be about leaving a legacy, making a difference in the lives of children, and leaving the world a better place than we found it in working with kids. And that really is the mantra that I've lived under in my work in education. So I think we're up to the next part. Dr. Hoffman?
Good job. So it's the question and answer portion of tonight's evening. Just give us a second to hop on the stage and to catch your breath.
Thank you.
Kudos to your AV department. The lights definitely work.
Just a little blinded.
They're bright, aren't they?
Yes.
Mr. Capriati didn't warn us when I stepped here the first time. I was taken aback at how bright everything was. Wow. So just as a reminder, we're now in the second component of tonight's event, and that is a brief question and answer period. As a reminder, based on what Mr. Capriati mentioned at the beginning of this, there was a community survey that was made available via the district's website from September 28th through the 4th of October that essentially asked community members to submit questions for consideration and inclusion in tonight's program for Dr. Lenz. Ways to get to know him a little better. And so over that time period, 7 questions were submitted, and I'm going to just sort of walk through the spirit of those questions with you over the next couple of minutes.
Terrific.
So, Dr. Lenz, one community member wrote that your background in education is impressive. His resume was shared online in the job description, in the job announcement, rather. And this resident wanted to know, however, just a little bit more about what specific experiences and skills you possess to manage and oversee the district's finances. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I've had a number of experiences dealing with budgets. I've been involved with the school district budget in Abington since I assumed the position of administration probably about 16 years ago. I've worked on building budgets, and the building budgets that I've worked on have been very much needs-based. So we've looked at inventorying the materials that we have and making sure we're not needlessly expending funds. And I think that's crucial in terms of development of a budget, that you're buying the things that you need and not spending in excess. And I think every school district presently is dealing with a variety of factors that are limiting the amount of money available. Certain factors are uncontrollable, the PSERS payments, the state pension system. Many school districts have also incurred debt for building projects such as yours. And so those are things you need to take into consideration when you're identifying what the budget's going to look like. And again, when you have a limited amount of funds, you have to make sure that you're working within those funds for the needs. So we've had to, in the district in which I've worked, prioritize what are our needs and how are we going to go about getting them, and identifying what's in the best interest of children. So the programmatic items within the budget have really driven the budget in my experience. We've also had to look at what are things in the budget, building budgets or school district budgets that I've worked with, particularly in the curriculum area, that are things that we can cut back on or save money in, and there are ways to do that. Some of that can be through looking at grant opportunities, and I've had the opportunity to do some of that. Some of that can be through looking at combining expenses with other projects or groups within the area that have similar needs. We've done some of that. And so those are the experiences that I've had. In addition to my work at the school district level, I also have worked at the university level. So I was the chairman and vice chairman of the board of Arcadia University. And in that opportunity, I had the chance to help to oversee and have fiduciary responsibility for the budgets of a higher education institution. A little bit of a different experience than public education. They're driven by revenue produced through tuition, so you can only spend as much as you're bringing in. And so that was a different type of experience, but provided a wealth of experience for me with regards to how do you create a budget that is within the confines of what you have, how do you refinance or reallocate expenses so that you defer some expenses until you absolutely have to do them. We had to do significant thought with regards to capital projects and how you determine what are the priorities for the school at that point and what do you put off until you can afford it. And so those are the experiences that I've had in budgeting.
Thanks. Related to finance, there's a follow-up question. What steps will you take to learn more about the district's budget and overall financial state of affairs in your first 30 days, 60 days, a year, et cetera?
Had a little bit of a jump start on that already. One of the parts of the process for the interview for this job was to analyze the financial statements for the school district. A little bit of an intimidating process at times, but it was a very, very good exercise, because what it allowed me to do is look at what are the trends of what's going on in the school district presently. One of the things that came out of that process is the declining enrollment in New Hope-Solebury. The issue that presents, obviously, is what are you going to do to continue to maintain the integrity of the programs that you're offering in New Hope-Solebury while also dealing within the funds that you're receiving from the taxpayers and other sources such as the federal government. And so that exercise allowed me to really delve into what are areas and trends within the budget currently that are increasing, what are trends where the budget is going down in terms of expenses. And I think what I would have to do moving into this position is certainly continue to review those figures and the budget and where the expenses are and what some of the issues are. Working obviously with the business manager, I think, is incredibly important. And with the team to decide what are our priorities going to be, working with the school board to identify the school district priorities, and then decide how are they going to fit within the budget.
Thanks. Shifting gears a little bit away from finance to instruction, another core component of your job responsibilities. A community member would like to know more about your approach to special education and inclusive practices. What approach will you take to ensure that all students will be able to thrive academically and socially in New Hope-Solebury?
This has been an area that I have a considerable amount of experience in, particularly in building work that I've done. So I've worked extensively with children with special needs. The school that I was principal of was the site for the school district for students with autism. So that was an experience that I had. We had a number of students with learning disabilities. We had a number of students with emotional disabilities that we needed to work with. And the key to that process, as I worked within the school and within the school district, was modeling on inclusion. So how do you involve children who have special needs in the regular education classroom, because you want to make sure that you're providing them with free and appropriate public education and supporting their learning needs to the maximum extent possible within their home school, within their home district. And that required a number of things that we needed to do. So one of them was educating and providing professional development for teachers with regards to how do you support children with special needs, how do you modify your instruction, how do you differentiate instruction, and how do you provide support for children with special needs in the regular education classroom. And that was a an amazing experience. The growth that we saw in the teaching strategies for faculty for all students, not just students with special needs, was incredible. The other thing that we worked on considerably, and I would emphasize working on here, would be providing a supportive school environment so that all children feel welcomed. One of the difficulties that often occurs for students with special needs is they feel like outsiders. They don't necessarily feel like they fit in unless you provided a supportive, welcoming, cohesive school community. And we worked incredibly at that in the schools that I've been affiliated with, and that had tremendous ramifications and tremendous benefit for all students within the school, and supported all the students in their learning. I think also you need to provide an educational environment which challenges students to the highest possible learning expectations. So you set the bar high for all students, and you provide the supports to ensure that students with special needs are able to rise to the expectations that you set by providing those supports. And the outcome that we saw in the schools that I worked with, again, was many of the students were incredibly engaged and able to compete to the same level of anyone else, as long as they had the supports necessary to provide that foundation for them. The other thing that was incredibly important in the schools in which I worked was providing support for them to be involved, not just in the educational programming, but in extracurricular programming. So they were involved in every aspect of the school any other student would, and they should be.
Thanks. Staying on the curriculum track, or the instructional track, a third community member was interested in your thoughts specific to grouping students heterogeneously, homogeneously. What will you do to learn more about what the district is doing specific to grouping students for all subject areas, grade levels? And how will you evaluate which instructional practices specific to grouping are best suited for the students in New Hope-Solebury moving forward?
I think the first thing I would need to do is work with the school district team to identify what practices are currently in place with regards to grouping at all levels of the educational program, from lower elementary school to upper elementary school to middle school to high school, and determine what the effect of those practices has been. Are they resulting in success? And are they resulting in success for all students within the school district? So I think one of the things that is a positive of the way that schools are evaluated now with regards to the Future Ready Index is it disaggregates the performance results by student group. So it allows you to delve into are the practices that are in place working for students such as special education students? Are they working for the various disaggregate groups that are identified by the state that we need to be looking at? Because for some students the program may be working, and for others they may not, and there may be ways we can enhance that. With regards to, could you ask the second part of the question again?
So the first part was, what will you do to learn more about the district's grouping practices, and how will you evaluate which practices are best suited for the students here?
Thank you. So in terms of evaluating the best practices, again, I would look at the data and see what that's saying. I think I would also want to meet with the teachers and see what's working from their standpoint, from the cabinet, and see what's working with regards to their standpoint. And I think that then you evaluate what's the most effective methodology. I think there's benefit to both methods of instruction. Heterogeneous grouping is excellent in terms of making sure that all children are exposed to the same content and the same material. But I think there are times, and in my experience, there have been times where we've grouped homogeneously to meet the needs of kids for gifted education or for support in enriching or remediating their learning. The elementary school, for example, that I worked in, we did a lot of work in the RTII, Response to Intervention and Instruction program, and through that model we were able to educate all students in a heterogeneous group, but then break them out into smaller groups based upon their needs so that we could educate them for the particular areas that were identified in the curriculum that they were weak in. And that served us incredibly well. And then that structure was fluid enough that if a child met with success in the tier or the level that they were in, we were able to move them to another tier or another level, and that served us extremely well.
Thanks. Moving on to school safety, the same community member would like to know more about the ways the district can improve specific to the prevention of bullying, horseplay, vandalism, things like that. What are some specific experiences you have in that area, and what are some strategies that the district might consider?
So I think that's a two-part question, in the sense that I think there's a proactive part in terms of building a school community, and I think there's also the things that you need to do with regards to the infrastructure and the safety plan. So let me start with the building the school community first. So my experience in this is extensive. I've done a lot of speaking on school-wide positive behavior support, which is one of the interventions that I know New Hope-Solebury has integrated and is using. And what that does is it builds a culture within a school to provide a safe learning environment and sets the expectations for what learning and behavior should be in a school environment. And there is built into that the assumption that the students will behave in a positive way if that positive behavior is reinforced, as opposed to what most of us grew up with, which was a punitive model of instruction where you were punished if you did something wrong. The benefit of positive behavior support is it allows for a fostering of a positive learning environment and supporting children when they're doing things right, which is resulted in much more positive results. The other thing that I've worked very closely with in response specifically to the bullying was the Alveus anti-bullying process. And what we did in that program, we melded the school-wide positive behavior support with the Alveus anti-bullying, because we found that school-wide positive behavior support dealt with addressing behavior, but it didn't necessarily address bullying. So we needed a bullying component, and we melded the two together. And through those two programs, we instructed students with regards to behavioral expectations. We also instructed students with regards to bullying, and most importantly, not just what should happen with the dynamic between a student who bullies and a student who's bullied, but what do the people in the surroundings of that situation do? So the onlookers, what are they doing to address the bullying, and how do we create a school environment whereby we're enforcing positive behavior and addressing behaviors when they happen, so everybody takes a role in the process, from faculty to students. The other part of your question with regards to school safety, I think, is looking at the buildings and the school district plan for emergency situations. None of us can plan for what emergency may happen, unfortunately. And in this day and age, unfortunately, we see too often that there are emergencies that schools need to respond to. And I think what is most important in that process is being prepared. So I think it's important to look at the building infrastructure. Where are your weak points? Where are the areas of concern? How do you tighten those up, and how do you make them less of an issue for intrusion or any problem for the school? And that could be anything from a fire to an intruder. So I think you need to look at the buildings and make sure that they're tightened up. And the grounds, and where are some issues in less structured areas when children are out at recess or children are out on the sports fields. Where are some concerns that may come up in those areas, and how do you tighten those up? I think in addition to that, planning is important, and providing an opportunity for students and staff to practice drills in the event that an emergency were to happen. Nobody's caught off guard, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. I had extensive opportunity in my experiences in administration in developing some of those plans, and we worked very closely with people who are knowledgeable in those areas. So we worked with the fire department, we worked with the police department, we worked with county agencies who had specialty in safety. And that was very important because they look at things through a very different lens than we do as educators, and they were able to identify areas that we needed to consider that we hadn't really thought about. So coming here to New Hope-Solebury, I think I would look at that as well, and look at the plans and what's in place, and then how do we tighten those up.
Thanks. So moving on to the next question. A community member is interested in your thoughts about the relatively small student population of the school district and the relatively large number of extracurricular activities that the district is able to offer. So here's another two-part question. How might you evaluate the opportunities that are currently in place, specific to extracurriculars? And then how might you solicit input moving forward from stakeholders about what's working and what might need to be changed or reconsidered?
Extracurricular activities, as I said in my opening statement, I think are absolutely crucial to providing a well-rounded education. I've had the opportunity to be involved in a wide array of extracurricular activities in the school district, to which I've been involved for 25 years, and supporting a lot of those programs, running a lot of those programs. I think that provides children with a well-rounded education and experience in public education. I think it's essential. In a school district like New Hope-Solebury, I can also understand some of the issues that would come when you have a smaller school district population and you're trying to run a multitude of activities. And I think what needs to drive that is where are the interests of the community and where are the interests of the students? Because ultimately, the program should be expanding the educational experience for children beyond the classroom. They should also be responsive to the needs and interests of children. And they should be aligned with what do they want to do when they ultimately leave us. So I think that analyzing the programs that are currently offered, what programs are benefiting from substantial enrollment and success with students, and what programs do we ultimately want to keep? Because it's very difficult, regardless of the educational setting and resources, to be all things to all people and all students. So I think there has to be some prioritization with regards to what programs are meaningful and impactful for students, and what programs do we ultimately want to run. I think in addition to that, I would call upon the students and the parents and the community to have some input into that, as well as the faculty and staff, with what programs align closely with what the needs of the community are and the needs of the parents and the students.
Thanks. A community member is interested in your thoughts specific to strengthening partnerships between the school district and the local business community. Can you tell us what school-community partnerships will look like under your tenure as the superintendent?
Sure. This is another area that I've had a lot of experience. So one of the things that I think is important for the superintendent specifically is to be the cheerleader of the school district and to build the bridges and connectivity with the community and the resources within the community, whether they be businesses or community organizations. I've had the opportunity to develop some of those partnerships in the school district that I'm in now. So for example, some of the things that we've done that I've helped to lead would be things like building partnerships with arts organizations. So currently one of my roles in the school district is to be the chairperson of the art and music departments for the school district, in addition to other roles that I have. So what I did was reached out to community organizations in the city of Philadelphia and regionally to develop partnerships with them. And those partnerships have taken a couple different roles. They've taken the role of being an opportunity for students to exhibit art at places like the Woodmere Art Museum in Chestnut Hill area, the Abington Art Center in Abington. I've also developed partnerships with art organizations so that the art organizations could serve as opportunities for professional development for the staff that I supervise. So they've actually had the opportunity to go out to art organizations and work with the professionals in the field, so there's a better synergy and connectivity between what's going on in the classroom and what's needed in the professional environment. The other thing that we've done is we've also partnered with higher education universities and institutes to provide opportunities to see what are higher education institutes looking for in the students that they're selecting for their programs. And that's been an incredibly eye-opening experience as well, because again, there's that need to align. What are we doing? Is it best preparing our children for the environment that they're ultimately going to enter, whether it be college or career? The other things that I've worked on, I currently am co-chairing the Abington Community Task Force, which is an assemblage of community organizations, nonprofit community organizations in the Abington area that come together on a quarterly basis to share resources, to share ideas, to talk through issues that may be facing the community, and to collaborate on resolving those issues. And that, I think, would be also something I would look to do here and explore possibilities for bringing organizations together and share our energies and our resources so that we're not all attacking the same problem in different ways. There's a lot more to be accomplished by working collaboratively together on some of those tasks. And in addition to that, I think I need to be out and visible in the community, meeting the various businesses, meeting the various community leaders, and making sure that there's a connectivity between the school district and those leaders so that we can share again in our resources and the opportunities that are there.
Guess what? That was the last question. Let's give this man a hand. There are two final components to tonight's event. Dr. Lentz will have an opportunity to address everyone again, and then Mr. Capriati will wrap things up. Before we transition to Dr. Lentz and Mr. Capriati's concluding remarks, I just want to again restate the intermediate units, our joy and our pleasure in working with the entire school district community to facilitate the search. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of the facilities and operations staff of the school district to have such a beautiful room ready for us after a busy day at school. I'd like to acknowledge the two gentlemen in the back, one from the intermediate unit, Mr. Ryan Wett, and Brandon from the new Hope-Solebury Technology Department that have allowed you to see us and hear us, and then of course for the folks at home to watch this live over the internet via stream, both now live and in archive format. So if we could thank all the folks that were essential in making this happen. Of course, thank you to Dr. Malone and the entire administrative team for your support throughout this process. Dr. Lentz, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I would also like to extend my gratitude to all of you for coming out this evening on a Monday evening, and with all the other commitments to your time. It means a lot to have had the opportunity to meet with all of you and to hear many of your concerns, thoughts, with regards to the school district. That very, very beneficial, and I enjoyed the opportunity to do that. I would also, again, like to thank the school board for the opportunity to meet with you tonight. This is not something that happens in every district with every hiring process, so it was an excellent opportunity to share my views, thoughts with regards to the school district with all of you. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Hoffman and his team for providing the background and experience to be able to do this, and his support throughout the process has been immeasurable. And certainly, again, the students and having the opportunity to meet with them. Through my conversations with the members of the school district community, the team here in New Hope-Solebury, I have had the opportunity to see the incredible pride that all of you have in your school district, and that speaks volumes with regards to transitioning from a school district there I've been very comfortable for 25 years to another opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the chance to working with all of you and the parent community and the larger community. I also want to thank the members of the community who submitted questions, because that provided me an opportunity to have insight into some of the areas of concern for all of you. That the questions certainly resonated with each of you and were things that are concerns and areas of interest for all of you, so it was nice to know what the thoughts of the community were in preparing for this evening. As I mentioned this evening, I'm very, very excited about this opportunity. I'm excited at the possibility of working with all of you. And I also look forward, most importantly, to developing and continuing the legacy that I've had in education for building the future of our children. And the most important thing to me in education, as I said from the beginning, is the children and how they drive what we do in education. Children are central to our purpose, and we should never lose sight of that. I think it's very easy sometimes in our jobs to get in the daily routine and to lose sight of the real purpose of why we're here. The opportunity I had to meet the children here in New Hope-Solebury and to meet the staff really resonated, because it was very clear here in New Hope-Solebury what the central mission of this district is, and the heart and soul of the district is the children that we're serving, and that was tremendously beneficial to see. I also would like to say that, don't want to lose my thoughts. The other thing I would like to say is I look forward to being a part of the history and the fabric of this community for many years to come. It would be my hope to remain with this community through my retirement and stay here till the end of my career. I'm very, very excited to be here and looking forward to working with all of you. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and participating in this event. Again, thank you, Dr. Hoffman, for leading us in this experience. And thank you again, Dr. Lenson. We look forward to Thursday night when we make all this official. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.